Good evening. I'm Clayton Morris. For the next half hour, we will take you on a journey through the heart of a natural disaster. For some people, the experiences of destruction are all too real. For others, the stories of human suffering and sacrifice are unbelievable. Join us now for Troubled Waters Flood 2001. Early on the morning of Sunday, July 8th, 2001, the small town of Mullins, West Virginia was like most small towns throughout southern West Virginia, waking up to the sounds of a torrential downpour, lightning, and thunder. But as the morning stretched on and the rain continued to fall, families struggled to keep the water out of their homes as water began to creep through doorways, basements, and even windows. And as families here fought to keep the rainwater back, other families were just waking up, finding their lives and their belongings washing away by raging floodwaters.
The main downtown area is completely underwater. The south end of town is completely underwater. The west end was, now it's done receded, most of the roads are clear up there. We have no electricity, we have no phones. And what I suggest to people today is that if you're not need to come to Mullins, you need to stay out of Mullins and let us clean this place up.
Oh, it's a mess. My house is just a mess. I don't know when I'll ever get it cleaned up or not. I'm gonna try, but I don't know.
And I mean, when it come down, it's took my father's. He had 3 trucks up there. As you can see in the background, one of them is at the lower end of his fence. And it took his camper, it's gone down the creek. Everything that he owns, his house is totally destroyed.
Well, I guess we went through hell and back. We've lost our trailer, we've lost our business, and we've had a lot of good friends that come down and help us. But
I tell you, we ain't been able to get out because of the water, and we've had a rough day today.
Well, we was all in bed this morning around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then I heard a big rush come through the window, and I looked and I had to wake up my wife, and I told her, I said, we're being flooded out. We grabbed what we could. I lost everything. She lost everything she had.
We've got 6 families here with nowhere to go.
And 3 apartments, everybody probably lost everything.
When the rain started harder, then it started raising more. And I think what's happened was just the drains had just, it couldn't control the water as it came down. There was just so much rain.
Rose pretty quick, yeah. And some of them try to go through, and pretty much there's a couple cars parked in the garage here.
The Department of Emergency Services is responsible for pulling all the information together and doing the analysis. We provide that to the governor, and he in turn decides whether he's going to go to the federal level for assistance, whether it'd be something that they could help with.
They'll come and look at the inventory I have now. There's adjusters on their way today. So they'll look at that, and they'll look at our inventory, anything that's been water damaged at all. They total the vehicle and they'll sell it as a flood vehicle, or some of the vehicles will actually take and crush them.
It is not a secret that the torrential downpours washed away roads, both cement and dirt, and made traveling through devastation nearly impossible. And for our own news crew, covering the floods became a tremendous task.
Sunday morning comes along, it starts raining, I'm at home, and the rain just continued. The thunder, the lightning, the heavy rain for a couple of hours, and then I started to think, well, what is going on? So found out what was happening and got into the station and wound up working really a double shift.
And I remember morning anchor Kimberly calling me, and her first words were, I went outside and the flood, it's out there. When you go to the station, maybe make some calls and see, because this is bad.
The phones were going off the hook. People were calling. We were getting, bulletins. We were getting all these urgent messages saying there's a flash flood watch in all these various counties. People need to be careful. Flash flood warning.
With the waters as deep as they were, just leaving here, there were 2 sections of the road that was pretty deep, and I didn't think I was going to make it through.
I'm trying to get to these people to tell the story, but at the same time, the roads are flooded out. How do you get there? And then you get there and you see all these people's homes are damaged, and you see all this water everywhere.
Say a picture's worth 1,000 words. The video was really showing what was happening, and it actually allowed me to tell the viewers, to warn the viewers.
When I got into work, I realized we were automatically in emergency crisis mode. There obviously were tons of homes flooded out, people, trying to deal with the devastation of the morning rains.
The water was literally just swallowing their homes and their cars. And basically, everybody that was there just told me that their whole lives were just in their homes and everything was gone.
And hundreds of people just standing there looking and watching the water just eat away at the foundations of their homes. I have seen all kind of tragedies, and I have seen things that I would just as soon not have seen. I've seen things that I wish I could forget sometimes, because you wake up at night and you see some of these scenes, but I had never in my life seen anything like this.
Taking phone calls, talking to viewers, talking to people who lost their homes right then and there. It was talking to all the officials, all the authorities, finding out what's going on and saying, okay, we need to collectively work together, we need to bring it all together, we need to make it make sense, and we need to present it to the people.
It's just that it came so quickly. No one was caught off guard. As I said, we had one back in May and we were really prepared for it. But the water came so quickly we couldn't do anything. We looked down the street. Back in May, I think it was May 17, we had flood on this section of town through here. Water came in the street up to right below the area we're standing here. Maybe about 2 to 3 foot, no more in the buildings down there. This flood came so quickly and so violently that the water was up to the ceiling tops in the Ray Wells Auto District. We were stranded ourselves in a section of town. We've never had a flood in Mullins where the upper portion of town flooded. By us being located in the city business section, we couldn't get out to go north, we couldn't get out to go south. We were just basically stranded. We went to higher ground, and there was nothing we could do for anyone.
Now we're doing everything from, along with the DNR and the county sheriff's department, taking four-wheelers back into some of these isolated areas of the county and in McDowell County to get water, food to people that can't get out still yet. We're with the people that are handing out food stamps. We're at the places where they're giving the portable showers. State Police's job here seems like it changes every day. I tell you, the bottom line to this is not law enforcement, National Guard, or anybody else. The heroes are what's going on down here are the victims.
What we're trying to do is be the facilitator of information whenever we can. We're a small town with a small budget, and obviously we don't have the dollars to come in and rebuild this community on our own. And we're trying to make that case to the people in government that we do need help, and we need whatever kind of help they can possibly give us.
What I have learned during a flood is how important that green uniform is to a community, because people see that green uniform of the National Guard and they know that finally order is coming back and some stability to their life.
Is it good to go over there, did he say? Well, I enjoy it. I wouldn't do it. It is a tough job, but I enjoy working with these folks.
You're the ones that did it. You're the ones that went out, rolled up your sleeves, or in some cases put the mask on, put the gloves on, got behind the equipment, did the shots, did the fueling, did the feeding. So that this task force could do its mission.
What the National Guard's doing is basically, number one, trying to improve the trafficability of the roads trying to make sure that people can clean out their houses and have, you know, as far as getting the debris up here. We don't actually go in and do it, but as far as the mass removal, we do that. Also to do an assessment of where the damage is, to make sure people have potable water, shelter, in cases where there may be looting or something like that, to provide security if the police are overmatched with people. So you want to, here you go, sir. I'm Colonel Swope. I'm the commander of the 77th Brigade, and I'm the field commander for the forces from the West Virginia Army National Guard that are deployed.
We are the Guard. When called, we're accountable. We're willing to stand up and say, doesn't matter where it is, time of day, we'll go.
Flood victims would soon find help coming from a recognizable symbol, the Red Cross. As the National Guard mobilized in force, so too did the men and women of the Red Cross, setting up field offices and command centers designed to bring hungry victims life's most basic items, like water and food.
And whenever there's a problem, disaster, something like this, they coordinate through Red Cross, and Red Cross goes to the various states that have feeding units. There's probably 100 of them in the U.S., and in this case, they called and asked us to come out here and provide meals.
When you get a call, it's usually just a few hours before you have to be ready to leave. So, and I've enjoyed cooking, so it just seems like this was the perfect niche for me.
It's kind of like once you go and see that the Red Cross is helping people, and you can be out there and helping all the people, handing out stuff, and they're so grateful, and you just, I don't know, it's a real good feeling.
On the scene of the disaster since the beginning hours, the Red Cross is now helping with the massive cleanup effort. I'm with Rich Aliff with the Red Cross and Second Lieutenant Rick Thomas with the National Guard. Rich, let me start with you. Let's take us through the morning of Sunday, July 8th, and were the phones ringing off the hook? How did you guys mobilize, and what was the process?
Once we realized that there was going to be the damage that there was, I actually came into Oceana at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was there Monday morning as the water started to recede, and just seeing the people on the side of the road waiting to assess the damage. We immediately started to try to open shelters and started our game plan of what we were going to do with damage assessments, trying to get National Red Cross, get them mobilized to get everybody in here so that we could get the people taken care of, get their immediate needs met.
Okay, and Lieutenant, for yourself, that same morning, take us through what you guys were doing. You guys obviously have to work together in such a circumstance.
We mobilized in on Monday. Is actually, most of us were called out Sunday night. We're out of Spencer and Weston, West Virginia. So when we got in, we went to the Beckley Armory first, picked up supplies, mobilized in on Tuesday morning, and immediately started clearing our way through town and the eastern half of Wyoming County.
When you came through town, what did you see when you first got into town?
It was utter chaos for the most part. We literally had to clear our way through town, trash and debris all in the street. Most of the water had resided by the time we arrived, which is, we can't do much when the water's up anyway. So.
And Rich, for yourself, was there panic?
There was disbelief. Everybody was just numb. They didn't know what damage was there, and the ones that could see the damage didn't know what they were going to do next. And still yet, you know, later on, as we are right now, people are still in that disbelief, because even after cleaning for almost 2 weeks on their homes and trying to get things back in order, they clean all day long and still realize, and they look back and they don't think that they've gained anything. This is far from over. As the Guard can tell you, the trash that they haul away one day is right back the next day, because people are still tearing things out of their homes. And
is that true? I mean, the work you do, is it 4 steps forward, 5 steps back?
We're making a lot of progress now. When we first started, it was that way. When coming through South and North Mullins, it just kept piling up on us. And presently, we have carried off 1,235 loads of trash from the eastern half of Wyoming County, and we're starting to make some progress through South Mullins and North Mullins. So we're winding down for the most part, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Rich Aliff with the American Red Cross, and Lieutenant Rick Thomas. We appreciate it. Thank you. Well, it is certain that during the early morning hours of Sunday, July 8th, families were concerned with health and safety and getting out of their homes as food and water started to float away and the sewage started to float in. The question of safety now turned to a question of survival. With any natural disasters comes the problem of health concerns, and I'm joined with Pat Ray. She's the Chief Nursing Officer with Welch Community Hospital. Take us through the initial stages of that Sunday and right after the disaster. What were the health concerns at the hospital and in the community?
Some of the biggest concerns that we had, Clayton, were staffing. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I received a call from my nursing supervisor telling me that we were getting flooded and the hospital was becoming an island. The administrator had arrived at the hospital. I tried to get in and was told I couldn't get there because there was no way in. The hospital was an island. We literally boated in physicians, staff, and patients from out in the community into the hospital because the hospital was surrounded by water. Our biggest concerns at that point was that the hospital itself was going to get flooded by the waters. We were going to have to move some of our patients, particularly our long-term care patients, upstairs. We were very fortunate. Those things didn't happen. Waters did begin to recede by Monday.
Now we hear about the dust. How much of a problem is that?
For those people with respiratory problems, it could be an issue. People who are asthmatic or have upper respiratory problems chronically need to wear masks or at least be careful around the dust.
And disease from that? Any kind of problems?
Not so much, no. The only type of disease that could pick up that way would be microbial type disease, and that you're not going to find in the dust particles. The dust itself is not going to be a problem for those other than those that are chronic lungers.
Let's talk a little bit about basic hygiene. You're walking through mud here. The streets here are littered with mud. The houses, or some of them still have water in them. Basic hygiene. Take us through what a person would need to do to just take care of themselves.
Wash your hands a lot. Wear gloves when you're handling anything that's been contaminated, anything that's contaminated with flood waters. Primarily now for people is keeping their feet dry. You get a lot of wounds, sweaty feet, wearing white dry socks, changing your socks often, trying to keep your shoes as dry as possible, wearing rubber tight boots, something to keep your feet dry so that you don't end up with foot injuries and infection. Of course, any type of signs of infection would be redness, swelling, temperature, any of those things. Those ought to be reported to a physician or go to a physician and get checked out.
Help comes from unlikely places during a disaster, people giving when they have nothing left to give. But the biggest help would need to come from the top, and the moment would not be lost on Governor Bob Wise.
July 8th, 2001, the day the torrential storms hit southern West Virginia, the state's governor started surveying damage immediately from up above. In a helicopter, Bob Wise and his crew flew over Wyoming County when they rescued 3 people stranded on rooftops. The day's action would foreshadow Bob Wise's role throughout the ordeal.
The counties in southern West Virginia that were affected severely by the flood have been declared a federal disaster area, and that's why people ought to be calling that FEMA toll-free number.
Those 4 letters would become a savior for many of these residents forced out of their homes. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, may not have been a commonly known government agency around here, but it's become an acronym to which people listen carefully when it's mentioned in a sentence. Combine the strong government force with a man looking out for his constituents, and much has been accomplished in a matter of days after the ravaging floods. First, an announcement confirming what many knew. This disaster was bad enough for the federal government to step in and help. But with determination, Wise is responsible for getting that help faster than expected.
Finding dollars will not stop in any way flood relief efforts. We're going to spend the money that's necessary to get the National Guard in, to get the Department of Highways in, to get the rebuilding started. We'll worry about how much it costs later.
The tally is estimated at $10 to $20 million, but that hasn't discouraged the governor. He handed out the initial relief checks to residents in Kimball just 10 days after the disaster.
The first one is to Mr. Anthony White for the sum of $939.
The first recipient, Anthony White, knows it's just the beginning.
Everything I own is gone. And this area this street was nothing but like the Hudson River from one edge to the mountain. You saw oil tanks, everything floating down, caskets, everything.
Anthony's story is just one of many. Wise says they're estimating between 1,500 to 2,500 families that have been left homeless by the raging waters.
These families can tell you far better than I. This will not replace what has been lost. What it will do is to help people start rebuilding and recovering.
Wise also plays a crucial role in getting campers and mobile homes out to flood-forced homeless West Virginians. And in McDowell, Wyoming, and Fayette counties, where residents must boil drinking water, Wise and Sharon Rockefeller present 2,500 cases of precious bottled fluid. One step at a time, with one focus at a time, Wise keeps a consistent message. Look forward and rebuild.
We think that southern West Virginia can come back. We've got a lot to do, and I want to keep every day seeing some improvement, some progress. We're going to keep moving.
It's a message that's contagious, even for those who have lost everything.
With the worst of the flooding over and the cleanup efforts underway, the waiting now begins. The job of cleaning up can last 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, especially when folks get hit as hard as they did from the flood. When the National Guard came to the rescue, it gave some victims some much-needed rest. One day short of 2 weeks ago, devastating floods hit our area, destroying homes and businesses. And if not for the thousands of volunteers from across the two Virginias, it would be nearly impossible for flood victims to get back on their feet. Takesha Williams gives us a closer look at the dedication and countless hours these volunteers put in.
When devastation hit the two Virginias, volunteers of all different ages, races, and religions came to help out people they've never met before.
Our primary response this time is to cook, and we're cooking food that the Red Cross furnishes, and we cook it and they deliver it. Well, as of last night, we have probably served just under 3,000 meals.
We have our homes and families, and we don't have a problem, and so when somebody else does, it's a privilege to go and to be able to give your time and effort to help somebody. We're all Christians, and there are lots of ways to show and talk about the love of Christ. For most of us, the best way that we can show and live that is to try to meet a need when somebody else has a problem.
The people here are wonderful, you know, they're great hospitality, very loving people. And to come out here today to help the people clean up the yards after the big disaster, the service is probably one of the most important things out here to me.
And while most volunteers say they came prepared to work, the hours were tedious, but still worthwhile.
Here we're doing, our young people are doing some cleaning up from the disaster from the flood. Our men are doing wiring and sheetrock work in the new building that they're building. It always surprises you. It's always something new when you see people hurting and people that have lost everything. You don't get used to seeing that.
Volunteers say it's that warm feeling that made their service over these last few weeks memorable.
We are a service to our fellow man. We are doing the work of the Lord.
We have to now decide and try to get it cleaned up, to start all over after 35 years, to start to rebuild. And we have to start from the bottom to work our way up. Everybody has been wonderful to come in here and to help us. We've got this large amount of cleanup to do, but with the help of everybody and with the good Lord watching over us, it'll all fall into place.
And with that, the worst was over, leaving families homeless and entire neighborhoods destroyed. And for the people of Virginia and West Virginia, what began as a tragedy now became a test for the people here to begin to rebuild and to put their own interests aside.
You'd have to see this to know what it was like.
I just got back from my honeymoon, let's get that right here. And I didn't go to bed till about 4:30 the night before. And the phone rang at 11:20 the next day and woke me up, and it was the owner, Charlie Stump. He was worried because of the amount of rainfall that was coming. He wanted me to check the drains and check the river. So I got up and I put clothes on and I went out and checked to make sure that the building was draining water. Went and checked the creek back here, and it was still about 1.5 to 2 foot from the bank. Came back inside, and I called him and told him this. Things are all right, you know. The river is still down. Everything's fine. I hang up the phone. About 2 minutes later, my new wife, yells at me, and I walk outside, and there's the first trickle of brown water coming down the road here. I told her to gather a few clothes and get the kid, and that I was going to move the vehicles out of the way. By that point, it was almost waist deep. Evacuated everybody else. I said I was going to come in, get a few items, make sure that they made it out of town, because you have no idea, I didn't know about the bridges on up the road. By the time that they made it just a few miles up the road here to Pier Point, and I contacted them on the phone, told them I was leaving. When I made it to the bottom of the stairs, it was all I could do on my tiptoes with my head tilted back to keep my nose out of the water. I ended up doing a swim down Main Street of Mullins. I have rafted. I've swam the New and Gauley rivers accidentally, and this was at least as bad or worse as that. It's something that can't be described.
There's people that, you know, that need us. There's people that depend on this pharmacy, and this was their pharmacy, and we just need to get back.
Hopefully, give back to the people what they have given to Charlie's Pharmacy over the years, and that's the support.
Assistance is pouring in now from all over the country, from Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and as far away as California. While the outpouring of kindness is powerful, the feeling of helplessness is overwhelming. And with the threat of rain still in the forecast, victims are crossing their fingers that the worst is now behind them. I'm Clayton Morris. Thank you for joining us tonight.